What's up? Welcome to the Unofficial Tedeschi Trucks podcast. This is episode number 199, and I am Adam Choi. To follow this show at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram. Please subscribe on YouTube and whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. This is a live stream. I'll get out the audio version of this either later tonight or tomorrow, sometime soon for sure. Did my computer just freeze completely? No, I'm still live. We're still live. That's good to know. I'll get out the audio version of this soon enough. Patreon.com/TTB podcast if you'd like to support. Thank you, Kathleen, Stacy, Troy, Daniel, Mariah, Bo, and Marion for the support. That's patreon.com/TTB podcast. And at the second two tiers, a portion of your contribution will get donated to the Mr. Holland's Opus Music Foundation, supporting music education all across the country. And of course, Kofi Burbridge Day of Service is coming up in September. I'll get more into that as that approaches. Of course, I'll be volunteering and promoting that, and we'll do a whole recap of that. But before then, TTB is getting back on the road. Oh, also Weedside and Woodside for all your THC needs at a New York City dispensary. If you happen to be in the tri-state area, don't want to forget that. And a bunch of other links as well to other fan businesses are in the episode description. But yes, before Kofi Burbridge Day of Service, TTB has returned to the road. Red Rocks is upcoming, of course, this weekend. But before then, they did a show last night. The band is back on the road at the Tulsa Theater. That was July 29th. And we have returning guest Kevin Coleman and Michael Drum, first timer on the show. So let's bring them in. What's up, guys?
Hey.
I see you and I hear you. Those are the things we need. Very cool. Let's start with Michael. First of all, how are you and where are you?
Well, I'm in Denver, Colorado, here in my bedroom, and I've got some artwork hanging up over here. And so, I flew on Monday down to Tulsa and was able to participate in a special event at the church studio that night, and then was there yesterday. And I am flying high today.
I believe it. So you live in Denver and you flew to Tulsa for the event at the church studio, the Learning to Live Together screening, and the Q&A, and you're going to Red Rocks too?
Yep, both nights.
Yeah, you are. Have you been to? You going?
Hometown. Yeah, I've been. Last year I went both nights, and then the year before I went both nights.
Nice. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into TTB, your musical journey, and how you discovered this great band? Are you a long-time fan?
I was 18 in 1969 when I went to the University of Colorado in Boulder, and that's when all this music that they are so inspired by was blowing up, right then and there. And I am going to Boulder that fall. Back in those days, this is when LSD was kind of a new thing, although it had been in the news and everybody had heard. But I had been a little sheltered. But I got up to Boulder and went to a thing called Drown Night at one of the 3-2 clubs where you pay a little bit of money and you could drink as much beer as you wanted. And I then said, I want to try some acid. I'd never done it before. Went outside, and immediately somebody sold me a hit of Orange Sunshine, the pure, real stuff. That's the way Boulder was in the fall of 1969. And then the next weekend I went, I want to do that again. And the band Zephyr was playing, the Tommy Bolin, who was 3 weeks younger than I was. And he was one of the most gifted guitar players. In fact, Derek played on a tribute album that was done for Tommy. And he was just incredible. And he was one of the first people to use the Echoplex. And that night I went on this Orange Sunshine, and he did a 20-minute Echoplex solo that nobody had ever heard anything like that. And so I got into him real heavy, but from there, the guitar thing was where it was at, but also any hip show. So March of 70, I went to see Mad Dogs and Englishmen at Mammoth Gardens in Denver. And Leon, of course, was the musical director and had a big impact. And that was incredible. And Leon's solo album came out the same month, so I was instantly all over him. He came back for 5 shows in June as dress rehearsals, $3 tickets. It wasn't advertised as a full-on show. It was advertised as dress rehearsals. I went to that, and I'd been kind of a shy kid. I was a shy kid growing up. Wasn't one for dancing or being loose in public. And that night, that changed, because that was some of the most amazing music made. So Allman Brothers came out at that point. I saw them up in Erie, Colorado around that time. But Derek and the Dominoes were scheduled to come to Denver, and then they broke up. Jimi Hendrix was scheduled, and he died. So it was really an amazing, it was a completely insane time. But I got way into guitar. So fast forward to where I in the 80s developed a skill for shooting concert videos. Started developing that skill. And by the late 90s, DVDs were selling in stores, and I built a contact base up, and I started getting hired to shoot concerts. It would be put out on DVD, and I was, quite good at it. I can say that. And Sanctuary Music Group started using me a lot. And in 2003, they cut a deal with Allman Brothers Band for them to do a new studio album, which was Hitting the Note, and then to do a greatest hits DVD off of a live concert. So I shot them at the Beacon in 2003, and Derek and Warren were in the band, and that's on YouTube. And it's a really amazing piece in terms of how much style is in it, but really how accurate it is in terms of dissecting Derek and Warren playing guitar. And so then I went and saw Clapton in 2007 when he toured with Derek and Doyle Bramhall III. And that was fresh for me having done that. But, there's a bit of an age difference there, so I didn't have a relationship with Derek, as such. But in 2012, he did a little festival out here that I was doing video for. And so I had a chance to say hi to him then, and I reminded him that I did that Beacon DVD. And he immediately said, "That's how I got the Clapton gig." And that's always been something I go out of my way to mention, because if you guys were to go look for that Beacon 2003 Allman's DVD on YouTube, it's I felt I was holding on to this amazing legacy that I had to really do something special with. So, long story short, I went through a lot of changes. I wasn't going to many concerts. I wasn't, because I had this career, I was getting a chance to work with these bands to produce their DVDs. And I never, at that point, in my life, at the age I was going to concerts as regularly as I had in the past. So I had never seen Tedeschi Trucks. And then I Am the Moon came out in 2022. And the way they were promoting it was released in 4 parts, and a video for every song and all of that. And I started listening to it. I'd take walks around my park, and I was just stunned. This is one of the great albums, period. And that Derek is now Tom Dowd. And I kept going, okay, next song, can Susan hit a note I haven't heard before? Can Derek play the guitar in a way that I haven't heard? Yes, 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 yes. And I just wound up feeling that was one of the great albums that's been released from that kind of genre ever. It wasn't just like, Fish is great, but, a lot of people don't think their albums are great. This album is, and not to say Eady, I'm not trying to throw shade on them, but what a great album. So at that point I went, what the fuck? I haven't seen this band. And so next summer I went to both nights at Red Rocks. And as is the case with most of the people who are into this band, I was just stunned into euphoria. And so I decided, okay, so last year I saw them 6 times. And this year I'm going to 6, 7, 8 times. I'm going to both Red Rock shows. I'm going to go to the Greek in Berkeley. I'm going to see him in Nashville. I've got a ticket for St. Augustine. and maybe there'll be other opportunities, but I've never had what happens to me happen. In all my years of going to all this music, everything I've done, they're really the ultimate live music band in terms of being able to invoke joy by taking over your nervous system. Like, unbelievable. But it is believable. And so I was at the Beacon in the Saturday show in May, and that night was as magic as you could imagine. And it's the Beacon last night. So Tulsa, I'm going, well, I don't know what to expect. Last night was another high watermark in a series of high watermarks that evidently don't stop with this band. And so that's my path. But I run this Tommy Bolin Archives Facebook page. I was a friend of his back in Boulder. He died in '76. He was so brilliant, such a genius, that I've helped continue to support his legacy. So that page is up to 230,000 followers. But of course, Tommy hasn't put out any new music in a while. Not to be snide, but he was amazing. So I've diversified the page to also include the kinds of artists that I think are in a parallel universe on whatever level. And Tedeschi Trucks Band is that to me. So I've been using that page to also post live videos from the shows I've been going to share stuff from their Facebook page. And just, to help. I have a little platform, and it's relevant to that, and I want to help. It's kind of where it's all at. So,
very cool. I appreciate you sharing that and sharing your journey and all that. And this is just, this is what I do here, is just talk about this band and fanboy out, and so many fans, nearly everyone has expressed similar to what you're describing of the emotional aspects of going to a TTB show. There's other bands that deliver magic at some points during the night on some of their songs on their album at some moments, but TTB is almost delivering magic from the first note to the last note of an entire show. There is no mailing it in. There is no let down. There's just peaks and valleys and waves, and they're bringing you on their emotional journey, on their arc. There's a narrative to what they do within a concert, within an album, within a song, within a part of a song. Even I think that's what makes them stand out in the so-called jam band space, so to speak, because they have these songs that have these narratives to them where they're taking you on a journey, whether it's improvised or whether they're playing one of their own originals. It's just that you're along for the ride. Did you catch Dwayne Allman with the Allman Brothers?
Actually, he had passed when they came through. So, he died in '71. So not a lot of people got to see Dwayne. It happened so early in their being a band, and what an amazing band! And the version in 2003 with Derek and Warren,
hit the note.
That was a phenomenal. It wasn't the same in a sense, but they were making sure that they were infusing that music with the kind of magic that it deserved. And I guess what was it, 2014 they stopped. And I know that's when Tedeschi Trucks, they'd already been together since 2010, but I guess that's when they started ramping it up quite a bit. And right off the bat, they had those 2 weekends at Red Rocks right away, because Derek had been coming through with the Allman Brothers. So the promoters in Denver, who were very tight, that whole scene, Fish, all of them, Warren, they immediately got 2 prime nights at Red Rocks right off the bat, and they've had them every. The only thing I could see is they could go to 3 now, from what I can judge.
Oh yeah, they could do.
Which is the famous deal there with Widespread Panic, doing 3 nights every year forever. But I think maybe TTB is ready to graduate to that.
Your first Red Rocks was 2022. Is that what you said?
With 2023.
They did play 2022, I think. Also,
every year. every year since
Just about it.
14, I
Did they
believe.
miss any? Yeah. Did they miss any years? I don't know if they missed other, maybe the COVID year, other than COVID year. But
No, I
yeah,
think it started back then, 2014, I believe. That's give
yeah.
or
It's
take a
it's
year.
it's been a minute. And how are you, Kevin? Where are you? Where are you at? You're back home too.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm in Tulsa. Tulsa's my hometown, so see them every time they come through. So yeah, still kind of like Michael said, on this euphoria, kind of this ride, this joy that, yeah.
Did you how many TTB shows have you been? Because you've traveled for, have I imagined that, or you've traveled for some
Yeah,
shows too?
this was my 21st show. So I've seen them kind of all over. I've seen them here many times, Red Rocks. I've seen them down in Jacksonville, Chicago Theater, Kansas, Dallas, Charleston, kind of anywhere I can. I like to travel. So been a little quiet this year. This is my first show of the year. But yeah, any chance I get. Absolutely.
That was probably emotional in itself, because that's something, because there's been a few times where in LA or during a COVID year where I had gone long times without seeing the band live. And when you see them that first time, it's that, just that in itself could be emotional even before they play the first note, seeing them take the stage.
Oh,
Did it feel like long time no see?
It did. It did. I think I saw them for the last year. I saw them, man, I don't even remember. Dallas, I believe, and then Kansas City, I think. So yeah, it seemed like a long time, and they've released a few new songs that I was just dying to hear, and yeah, and then they did the event Monday night at the church studio, so that just built up a lot of excitement. So
yeah, tell me about that event.
Yeah, I didn't get to attend. I think Michael, you were there, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Michael was there.
Yeah.
I was there. I had a friend of mine in San Francisco who knows Jesse Lauder.
Yeah, he's been on the show. Lucky to get him, talk to him.
What a great piece of work that thing is, and the amount of to produce something like that is not easy to do, and it has such an emotional impact. It's just a brilliant piece of work. From when, and Derek explains the whole thing about how they wound up wanting to do that. And Joe had died, and then the idea was, well, maybe we could have some guests or whatever. And then he was like, no, it should be a tribute to that specific band and that specific event. And the footage that's in there of the backstage behind the scenes, some of the stuff Leon Russell winds up saying. And as I said, Leon was a huge hero of mine in 1970, 71, 72, 73. And so I was psyched to come down and see the museum. But then when I heard that Jesse was going to do the showing, I made sure that first day that I went and bought the ticket, which was free, but you had to go through a process like buying a ticket. So I was really excited about going. And I reached out to the to the museum, made a call to him, see if I could use help with the Facebook page, anything at all. And I didn't leave a message. And then Ronnie, the COO, called me back off of seeing it on caller ID. And so we added an extra component where they stayed open 4 to 6 on Tuesday, a little longer, for people to be given tours. And it's all free, and the place is just a phenomenon. I had a chance to meet Teresa Knox, that first thing, who was the mastermind of that place. And so anyway, it was going to be a chance to see it again. So we were in the studio space, and documentary was played. And then Jesse came out and said, well, we're going to have a Q&A, but before we do that, and Susan and Gabe walked out, and they played The Letter and Song for You as a duet. And just, there's a shot from that. Just killed it. And I shot that. A number of people shot it, and I've got it up on the archives page and on my profile. And it's just, it was so intimate. And Susan is such a powerhouse. And when it's just down to her and Gabe, where she can just be the center of attention, and boy, she can hold that attention, that's for sure. So she killed it. And then they brought both of them back out for the Q&A, and Jesse had a bunch of questions, and then a number of us were also able to ask questions. And I had one that I had wanted to ask, and it had to do with the whole vibrational healing dynamic of something that intense with the frequencies, everything they're doing. There's no other band that's doing that kind of sustained intensity with such provocatively profound guitar playing on top of it. I mean, he is the master. And he wound up saying, yeah, it's meant to do that. And if we're firing on all cylinders, it does. And my thought was, well, they fire on all cylinders all the time. And he said, yeah, it's intense. And then Susan chimed in about, yeah, there's a reality to this whole vibrational thing and this whole healing thing. And she made a nice statement about how the band has to be able to get into that space to where they can then do what they're doing that helps everyone else be brought into the same kind of. So there's something unusually profound with this band, in my judgment, and what they're able to do and what they intend to do, and that they just do it every single time.
Yeah, there's so many aspects of them that are moving, that are emotional. Of course, when there's a duet with Gabe and Susan, the intimate aspect of that. But something I often come back to is the harmonies, the vocal harmonies with the harmony vocals, especially since they've added Alecia in 2016, or I think it was, or 2015. But just having the female voice with the two male voices, it feels more like representative of humanity in the same way that the Mad Dogs and Englishmen, that their harmony vocals would have even more than 3 or 4 or 5 back there. There was a circus back there, but it's something about that, the harmony vocals and having those background vocals and those oohs and those ahs and those and all of that just really, it's stirring. And also are the horns also, like even all the old soul songs from the 50s and 60s from American black artists that have the saxes and the horns added them. It really gives it music an emotional punch. So you get that, and you get Derek. There is no more expressive guitar player on planet Earth than Derek Trucks, especially when he's playing that slide thing. So like, there's just so many great voices within the band.
I disagree with that statement about when he does play the slide thing, because of course that's what he's kind of famous for. But he doesn't play the slide on that many of the songs. He does play it all throughout, but a lot of the songs, it's just him. And I get just blown away with him playing just rhythm when he's. So, not to take anything away from it, you can't take anything away from his slide playing, but I think it obscures, and that precedes him. That's what people always mention.
Sure.
Greatest slide player ever. No, he's the greatest guitar player alive.
Agreed.
Touring now.
When he's playing any aspect of guitar playing, whether it's lead, whether it's rhythm, whether it's a combination of those things, whether it's lead with slide, without slide, his sound, the way I describe it, it always cuts through. No, even when he's up there playing rhythm in a jam, that's a special, or with 10 other guitarists on stage. If he's playing lead, whether he's the loudest, but something about his tone and his style, it's just so confident and purposeful, and it's just the vocal quality of his playing. Even some of Tedeschi Trucks band's greatest songs, most popular songs, like, are not him playing slide. Passaquan, there's no slide on, of course.
He just has a toolbox, and he's a master any tool he wants to play. And what we were talking about just a minute ago with the arrangements, that doesn't get talked about. Each song has its own arrangement that's utilizing all those different ingredients to whatever degree and however the arrangement is done. And back when Mad Dogs was around, the whole thing was that Leon was doing all those arrangements. And I have to think that Derek is probably primarily responsible for the arrangements, and I'm sure he gets input, but his skill set is band leader, arranger, producer, writer. I mean, he's got all the skills, and that's what I thought I Am the Moon was an example of, just a tour de force example of what a great producer he is now. And
leader and band leader. I can't help but think of the moment in the Mad Dogs or in the Learning to Live Together doc when Leon essentially was passing the torch to Derek to lead the band and lead the musical program. Basically, it's like I'm out of this game. It's up you do it, kid. Was the kind of vibe. It was a nice moment with Leon. There are so many like great, cute, tender, funny, hilarious, informative moments with Leon. Natural, authentic is probably the best word for it.
When I first saw it, it was stunning because Leon's there. They're talking about who's all going to sing, and got all these guests and all these singers. And Leon turns to Derek and goes, "Are you going to sing?" And Derek goes, "No." And Leon goes, "What, are you afraid?"
That's right.
And maybe on some level, he must know he's not a good singer. But it's funny, he never says a word on stage. And so I had a clever aside from the Monday event where they're doing question and answer. So Susan's answering a question, she's got the mic, and then Derek's going to answer. She hands it to him, and he's holding it down here, and she helps push it up, and I go, yeah, he doesn't have good mic technique live because he never sings.
Maybe definitely less experience. Obviously he talks and he gets going, of course, but not at the shows, of course.
Never. Has he ever spoken at the shows?
I think he said something. I forget what it was. I think there was something he said something to the fans either like this year or last year, but it was a real extenuating circumstance where there was a technical issue or a weather issue or Susan had to go take care. Like it was some weird, really strange circumstance where he said like one or two words. I forget what show that was, but I think there was something within the last year or two. But other than that, never.
I need to know which show that was because
I don't know. If someone is listening to this or fans, someone in one of the Facebook groups will tell me if I'm making this up or if I dreamt this. But that's something that I think more casual fans or people who don't know the band are surprised about or even disappointed in when they realize that he never says anything. I think it's something for fans like the three of us, like. We forgot about that's even a thing that like, oh yeah, Derek. I'm not looking when you go to the show. It's like, oh, looking forward to Derek. That's like the last thing on your mind is if Derek's going to talk. But I guess it may be an unusual thing for casual fans where the name on the bill, it doesn't say a word to you.
Well, I've gotten to the point where I have no expectations and I'm just waiting to be opened up and just take whatever they're going to do. I don't have a wish list of what songs I want.
You're like me. You're like me. That's like me.
It's just the experience. They're in charge, and boy, do they know what the hell they're doing. So I'll let them decide, and I won't then be. Oh, they didn't play X. Well, I don't care because I get blown away no matter what they play.
Everyone always thinks, even the people who have a wish list or prefer to hear things, they forget about it 4 songs in and are never really disappointed by that. My thing is more like. I want to hear the original that you haven't played in a while. That's kind of whatever that is. Play one of your originals that you haven't played in a while. That's always special when they dig deep into their own catalog. But short of that, I'll let them make the set list. I'll leave it to Derek and the band.
I always thought after When I Am the Moon came in, I thought I misinterpreted something. I thought they were going to do some shows where they played the whole album, and I wish they had. But they obviously been playing a lot of those songs continuously throughout all the sets. But I wish they would, that I thought would have been valid because of 24 songs, original album. How do you make a real statement? They did a great job of that. But I think if they had done a couple shows where they did nothing, but they played the whole thing and then would play some other songs, I think that would have been interesting. But
they did, I think, the first was it Crescent. I forget the names off the top of my head. They're behind me, but like I think they did the first 2 or most of the first 2, and then they started to split up the songs. But I don't know if they played the second 2 of the I Am the Moon, the last 2 albums as much. But that's something we see online for sure. Like people posting and wanting to hear just more I Am the Moon songs, more songs from I Am the Moon that didn't get as much play, on the tours. They have just too many songs. It just kind of is what it is. They have too many songs. I was talking to Emmanuel Etcham on the show, and he was saying that, telling me 150, he's got to learn 150 songs is crazy.
Well,
do you play guitar? I was gonna ask if you play any instruments, Michael
Me?
and Kevin.
No, I don't.
No, neither of you guys play, but you got big into guitar. You're a guitar fan and all that.
And I developed this directing of live music TV stuff, and that's how I then became part of it, in a sense, because I never had the support or the emotional patience to learn how to play an instrument, but I self-taught myself to do that, and that wound up being, in a sense, an outlet for me that way, to be part of the band, because if the band didn't approve of what I did, it wouldn't come out, and then I wouldn't get hired the next time. So I'd gotten to where I could do that, but it was a chance for me to really get in touch with music on a really intimate level. And so I guess I had some attuned focus points that I'm good at, and this band just takes every bit of whatever I've developed in terms of watching, listening, experiencing. They fill up. That second set last night was, I didn't think anything could impress me more than the Beacon. And last night was the same thing.
Should we get into the show a little bit? We can do that. I got pictures and tabs and things pulled up here. We got what do we got here? You guys see the set list?
Yes.
Yep.
Why don't I see I was going to show pictures of the venue, but we can get right into the set list. I'll read it out for the audio listeners. Crazy Crying Here, My Dear, Fall In, Part of Me, Done Somebody Wrong, Bell Bottom Blues, Why Does Love Gotta Be So Sad, It's So Heavy, Let Me Get By to close out the first set. You guys can let me know if this is accurate. Second set, Do I Look Worried, Soul Sweet Song, Little by Little, 1999 with Seth Lee Jones, Kebbi and Isaac Jam Into Shame, Ain't That Something, Yes We Will, Midnight in Harlem, Made Up Mind, Future Soul, and Let's Go Get Stoned to close it. I saw some videos online already. I heard Future Soul, Let's Go Get Stoned, and Do I Look Worried, and you were streaming for a minute there. The first few was that you, Michael?
Yep.
Yeah, so I caught some of the first set. Thank you for that. I appreciate it, but I'll let you guys steer here.
So Kevin, I wanted to ask you about Seth Lee Jones, because that, and then the encore when it was at the Greyhounds, members of the Greyhounds, these artists from Tulsa, who I frankly had never heard of. And if they're going to invite people out, that's because they can fit right in and just also do an amazing thing. So Kevin, I'd like for you to run with that one.
I wish I knew more about Seth Lee Jones. I feel a little guilty not knowing that much, but definitely a guitar wizard. I think he actually customizes some guitars, and then he plays locally here with a few guys, a trio, I believe, and then as part of a record company here, I think Horton Records, I believe. But just really into the Telecaster and just this incredible slide, twangy, just rich sound. I got to find out more about him. I got to go see him live. And then Greyhounds, I've had the pleasure of seeing them many times. They're actually from Austin. So they're out of Austin, and they tend to stay there in Austin mostly and do a lot of recording, and they play at the Centennial Club. But they come up to Tulsa often, and I try to see them every time they come up. Those two guys are incredible. They have a drummer that plays with them, who I also think is just incredible. And I think they have a rich history with TTB. I think that they played with them back in, I don't even know what year, maybe 2015. They toured with them. I think they were writing and working with J.J. Gray at the time.
Yeah, I think they did. They covered what's that? They covered a J.J. Gray song, I think, early on. I forget what the name is off the top of my head, but I think that's how I found out about all these artists through TTB essentially.
Really cool guys, and I think they even played. So if you look it up, I think Mike Mattison, and then those two guys and a few other guys, they did a couple songs, and they had a little band together for a short stint called The Missing Pieces, and really cool stuff. So just a lot. Those guys are a lot of fun. They always put on a good show, and like I said, they're pretty close with, I think, Derek and Susan, it seems.
So it was fun when they were doing Let's Go Get Stoned.
Yeah.
And one thing I thought about last night, it just seemed everybody was more relaxed. And then when they did that, and so obviously the keyboard player who had a solo is also a great singer. So then Susan improvised, pushing the mic through the music, whatever the music stand, for the organ player from the Greyhounds to take a verse. Like, just here you go. And it was a great moment where it was kind of, I don't know if he had a sense of that she was going to do that, but she did, and he was completely ready.
Yeah.
And just nailed it. And that felt like an unplanned moment to me, which just worked perfectly.
Pure fun. Yeah. It's amazing. The only thing on the set list, they did strike out Yes We Will. I think it must have been a timing issue. So it was incredible. Ain't That Something? Straight into this beautiful intro to Midnight. Just incredible.
That was a transcendent version, which of course they played that probably as much as any song.
Sure.
But that's the thing, when they can come to what is one of their staples, and then they still do another take on it that you're just breathless at the end. I've heard this, so I had the sense that the more you hear them, the more you're ready to go wherever that song is going to go. It's like, it's not like, well, I've heard that song before. No, it's irrelevant. It's going to be a fresh, energized, new experience. No matter how many times I've seen them do songs, it's always the same.
That's what brings us going to 20 shows a year, 10 shows a year, 3 shows in 3 nights, seeing the band. Some of my regrets are not going to more shows, because before I even realized that, like, oh, there's no 2 Let Me Get Bys that are the same.
That's right.
In the moment of it all is what's so profound. And it's an experience that's happening right then. And that's how I kind of view it. It's like, they are so rare. They are the rarest of gifts to music fans. And anytime they play is like a special occasion. And guess what? All those other bands are long gone. People die, they break up. This band just keeps on keeping on.
Every time you're going,
it's a treasure, is just the point. It's a treasure.
I get an adrenaline rush from seeing, specifically this band, of course, live, that I get almost, it's a similar feeling going to a live sporting event, but not just a live sporting event in some regard, because I'm a sports fan. So when like the Mets happen to be in the playoffs or whatever, that's super exciting. But that's what it is like for TTB. It's like every show is a playoff game in some regard. It's like that emotional
that you're winning. That you're winning.
Yeah, that your team is gonna win. But it's that same level of thrill and excitement where you don't know what exactly is gonna happen. But yes, you are going to win in the end. It is different than sport.
So after the Beacon, I was like, okay, wait a minute. What is going on here? And I said, it feels like it's like nonstop dopamine releases. Yeah. So then a couple of weeks later, I did this Google search. And what is it when you have sustained dopamine releases? And that's euphoria. That's being in a euphoric state. And so I don't think it's an adrenaline rush. I think that's the way we're trained to think that it is. I think it's actually dopamine releases that just don't stop. And that equals euphoria. And that's this afterglow the next day. For us to be put into that kind of a safe, euphoric state is an amazing human experience that is rare.
Yeah, so I get it.
I look at each show as like, this is actually happening. Oh my God.
Is there any other band that, I mean, I guess other bands can come close or have come close for you live or just being a fan, but it's just that no one else can deliver and execute as regularly, as consistently as this band, like I was describing, from every show to every moment of every show, essentially.
Yeah, they've set a new standard. So whenever I go to a show now with another artist, I'm wanting to see how many times it's not a voluntary thing. I'm going to get into this. They have to come and just invade me and take me away and overcome whatever's going on. It doesn't matter. They can just come and take me away. And yeah, I've never seen any band that does what they do on that level. And
see, I'm not crazy.
It's still indescribable to me. I've seen good music, but I've never felt this with any other band. I mean,
yeah, no, that's what's brought me here. That I was already talking about them and thinking about them and listening all day and collecting albums and set lists to the point where I'm like, oh, I might as well just do a podcast and just run my mouth all day, but also give other people a forum to express their thoughts and feelings about the band, and that's been super cool for me to provide that as well.
And it's just like I said, it's a gift to those of us who are there, because I don't know that many people, when somebody finally does give in and go, because music appreciation is so subjective, and everybody's got friends that are saying, hey, do this, do that. But for people to decide I'm actually going to go, but I think when people finally submit and go see this band, you know, how many of them don't come back? You know, I know there's no statistics, but I have to think it's a high percentage of people going. I dragged
a handful of family members and friends to shows over the years, and 95% of them have gone to 2 or more shows.
Yep.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Get back to the set list if you guys want. We can continue to talk.
I was just that second set. I got up to I got it all the way up where I'm just a prisoner and my body has been taken over by the music.
Yeah.
And somebody else made this comment about, because that theater, I was standing up at the beginning and said, sit down, while I was doing that live stream. And the whole point of, wow, it's too bad that people in that situation, that the ethic becomes, oh, you have to stay seated, because it's such a physically. And so what happened to me when I saw Leon Russell in 1970, which was just, at his first 3-4 years, those shows he did were so infectious beyond comprehension. And Derek refers to that's, he said that in the answer to my question the other night, that, yeah, there were times when Leon would just, and it's what they do. And he related to that legacy of what he was, of course, not born yet, but it's that kind of, just, you can't deny it. It's just too powerful, unless you don't like guitar.
No, but there's really something for everybody with TTB, and that's kind of what people sometimes ask in these different groups and stuff online. Oh, what song should I share with my friend to get them into the band? And I always suggest meet them where they live. If they're a guitar player, send them something that's very Derek centric. It might be the way to go, or even Susan centric, with them dueling or something like that. If they come from a jam band world, maybe you send them Passaquan or an instrumental. If they're a female, very big fan of female vocalists, maybe you send them something very Susan or Alecia centric with maybe a ballad or something, because there's really an entry point for everyone. And I think once you kind of are in, then you kind of fall in love with the rest of the band.
So I flew back from Tulsa today, and then as I'm getting off the plane, a gentleman sees my T-shirt and goes, I was there last night. And he's from Tulsa, and he took his family. He had never seen them before. And yeah, same reaction. It's like, I can't believe, oh my God. Yeah. And it's always fun for me the first timers, to have them then start looking for, how do you describe this? How do you express what that was and why it's that powerful?
Still trying to figure out how to do that 199 episodes later. They're a 12-piece blues rock soul powerhouse. I think that was one of their original descriptions on their social media. So I used that.
Jazz improv, icing on the cake.
Well, that really is TTB. They expose you, they educate you to different music that you haven't heard. And even if you're a hardcore fan for a long time, they're always going to dig into deep cuts and educate you. And who was this artist? So you're not just getting TTB originals. You're getting a history lesson, an education. You're getting exposed to new music, or old music that's new to you. These are Kevin's pictures. I can see. I don't know if he had to leave or had a technical thing, but he popped out. But I'm sharing his picture. This is a good one.
Yep.
That's super cool. These
I
are from last night.
Love they've added video this year. It really helps. They were give it another layer of dimensionality.
Right, and from what I gather, I haven't seen the video, experienced it live, but everyone's on the podcast and that I spoke to is huge fans of the video aspect, in a way that it's stylized and it complements the show, but I think it also is beneficial to some people that may be sitting back, but it's not intended to be like a monitor necessarily to watch the show. Right. It's more of an enhancement piece, and it doesn't take away from the show. Because that's another thing with going to see TTB, is like there's a lot to not just listen to and take in with your ears, but also see visually, to the point where, like, I do think of myself as like, or we're all, as fans, we're directing our own TTB experience just based on where we focus our eyes at different points. Whether you're looking at a wide shot or you're focusing on certain faces, kind of got to be on a slow swivel the whole night is kind of the way to go, and just follow the sound with your ears. But sometimes I think it's better to look at Susan when Derek's playing, Derek when Susan's playing a solo, because you can hear the person playing the solo, but it's fun to see, of course, the reactions. And that's the reason why some of us are willing to pay a little more to be closer, because it does enhance the experience of going to a TTB show when you do see those interactions and those reactions close up, seeing Derek pointing and directing everyone, and moments of laughter and a TTB show. You experience really all the emotions, including humor and lightheartedness. It's not just we're crying during Midnight in Harlem. It's everything. It's that and everything in between.
Yeah, he had one solo towards the end, and I can't attach it to a song. It might have been "Let's Go Get Stoned," because the guitar player from the Greyhounds was there, and Susan was having a really playful interaction. And went over to him, and they were cracking up while the song was going on. And then Derek just, of course, melted his guitar, and she was noticeably smiling, and sometimes you can see. There was one point in the show where she did a little bow down kind of thing. Yeah, it's always very subtle, but underneath it all, she's married to this great guitar player.
They're fans. Go on.
Yep. Yeah, and that's it. She's a fan of his, and he's obviously a fan of hers as well.
Yeah, no, they're music fans. They're fans of each other. They're fans of Tedeschi Trucks Band, and that's something that really shined through. I am grateful and lucky to have had Gabe Dixon on the show and Kebbi Williams, and talking to them about their sort of joining the bands and how they view Derek and Susan as musicians. It just really shined through that. Yeah, they're all professionals and respect each other, and you don't want to put people on pedestals, but at the same time, they're fans of the band, and that just shined through in the conversations. And I get that passion also shines through, whether I'm speaking to someone who does video for the band and films music, whether it's someone who does poster art, whether it's someone who just goes to concerts and dances, whether it's someone who has conversations on podcasts. I think the passion is always what shines through. Sometimes it's hard to tell if someone like I'll talk to someone and then they'll be like, yeah, I just discovered the band in 2020, 2018, 2017. I'm like, really? You haven't? You sound like someone who's been listening for forever. Like it's you can get into the band very quickly. Also, like we were describing, someone who hasn't seen the band or heard of the band, you go to a show and you watch a few YouTube videos, and then it's like, oh my God, my life has changed.
It's like when something is undeniably so sophisticatedly great, there's so many ingredients in there, and then they present that, and then Derek is like the vibration up at the top of it, and it's just a fabulous experience that they want the music to be that profound, and that they know they have to have, this is the concept, for them to be able to deliver this music in a profound way. And I think it kind of goes back to their love of the legacy of all music history and whatnot. I think they feel they have a sacred trust, in a sense, to keep this music alive and to keep it as an active bit of what gets performed, but to do every song in a way that it's beyond, even if you saw the original, it could in fact be beyond what the original was.
I think there's something to that. And I do think about, like, what the hell would Duane Allman think if he heard Derek Trucks playing guitar? What the hell would Jimi Hendrix and some of these other art? What would Mozart? Well, I mean, honestly, like, I would love to get their ear, like, to hear that, because there's something about you get that there's when TTB covers like an Allman Brothers song, and I'm listening, I listen to Allman Brothers live, you get that same sort of feeling inside. It seems very special. It's a unique feeling. It's emotional. It's the same spiritual quality when Susan sings Whipping Post, or whether it's Greg. It really captures the spirit of the song, but also adds on top of that the talent and the musical virtuosity and the tightness of TTB, which, with all due respect to Allman Brothers tribute bands and other artists that do cover Allman Brothers songs, no one can do it quite like TTB does it. And it transcends just beyond, obviously, Derek being a very skilled slide guitar player, a la Duane, but it really is like that, what you're describing, because he kind of is the next evolution of Duane Allman. I think that's fair to say.
We all want to put everything in a box, and we all want to put a category and a label on it, and that's a good way to do that. I think the question you asked before, what would Duane think? What would whoever think? And the thing that's clear, all the great musicians from different genres, when they get together, they have a mutual admiration society, and they wanted, they wanted to then play with that person. Everybody would want to play with Derek, and he'd want to play with everybody, and they would all get to go to where that place is that these people get to go to, because they can do that. And that's what we don't do. We don't have that ability. It's a rarefied place. It's rarefied air that the great musicians are able to occupy. So across generations, they would all love it.
I think we're really lucky because Derek inherited, obviously talent on some level as well, but a fandom for music, a love for music, for the music that came before and the music that we all love. But what he didn't inherit as much or at all is the sort of off the stage, the off the stage issues that a lot of the other artists had before them, whether it's Greg or Duane or Jimi Hendrix, some of the tragic aspects and the destructive aspects that these other artists dealt with. I mean, he's talked about this in interviews, how those have come before have served as cautionary tales to some degree. So we're lucky that he'd inherited the love for music and the talent, but not necessarily those other things that can be distractions and become tragedies.
And I have a theory about that, which I've spent the past number of years trying to look into my own emotional past and what happened to me. The baby boom was a time where a lot of families had all kinds of kids, and the parents didn't have a freaking clue as to how to nurture their kids. And there was all kinds of abuse, all kinds of ignoring, all kinds of judging, all kinds of, you have to do it this way. A lot of the baby boom kids never were accepted, acknowledged just as souls, spirits. And parenting has evolved quite a bit based on the science. But I think the baby boom in general, there's a lot of wounded people who came out of that. And if you have that kind of pain, and if you have talent, you're going to go for what feels good. And being a musician, obviously, getting that kind of notoriety, that feels good. The dopamine, when you're on stage and everybody's loving you, what we experience out in the crowd with this band is what the musicians themselves are experiencing by being that significant in their gift. And so I think a lot of the musicians from that era were running away, in a sense, from their pain, their families. And if you look back at the childhoods of the ones who had tragedy or at least had addictions and it took them a while to get it together, almost all of them, they all have that kind of tragic early childhood story.
Their father died when Greg, I think when he was 1 year old when his dad died, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean that will probably mess you up. Doesn't necessarily have to, but there's a lot of psychology and
it leaves a wound. It leaves a wound that doesn't go away unless somehow, and so there's like a hole there. And there's a yearning, a longing. You wanted that connection. You wanted that love. And if you don't ever get it because they're dead, or you get whatever it is, there's a lot of different patterns that a lot of people in their own families have experienced. And it just creates a wound, and the wounds don't go away. And they wind up showing up later in life. And I see a lot of it as people running away from that pain, because in our society, it's not like, hey, go ahead and understand what pain you went through. You know, that's not a thing. So drugs, alcohol, music, sex, a job, any of it can kind of become a pathway away from what you don't want to experience anymore. And the worse it was, the more you're kind of driven. And like Leon Russell was that way. He had a horrific father. And so I don't know if you've read that biography that's out on Leon. It came out about 2 years ago, just called Leon Russell, by Bill Janovich, who's also a musician, great writer. It's the ultimate look at Leon. And chapter 40 is all about Locke and Jesse's documentary. And so anybody who hasn't read that book, that is an informative thing about the root of part of the inspiration for TTB.
Oh, for sure, it was Mad Dogs.
And is Leon, who of course was the musical director of Mad Dogs. And then when they had him there in 2015, and what goes on in that documentary between the two of them, and just, it was so heartwarming that they did that. And that's unusual, that the bands do what they've done. And now 10 years later, they're putting it out. Whatever led to the delay on that, or whatever. Maybe they feel now they have enough fans that they can, because you still want to make, the idea when you put out an album is you don't want it to just sit there and nobody cares. You want it to have some level of success. And so that's coming in September. And so they've released the video of the letter. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
That's It's like incredible. It's just, the Susan just is killing it.
I can't help but think about, because we're talking about, pain that humans go through, and how we're all really craving not just love, but also just simple terms, human connection. And I think those are feelings that one can get, big boosts of when they go to a TTB show. It's definitely a big positive love fest, and lots of family and and friends around, especially at, like, I'm sure Red Rocks is going to be that vibe. That's something I was thinking to mention or ask about in terms of this Tulsa show, because I think you get more people standing, more people dancing, more of a family environment at, so, you know, destination shows at the Beacon, maybe in Philly, Chicago, you know, hometown shows, Boston, Florida, Jacksonville, kind of things. Is that something why maybe the crowd may have not been the most boisterous and enthusiastic standing dancers, because it was in Tulsa and it's maybe a little bit off the beaten path of, you know, maybe where hardcore TTB fans are?
Well, I think everybody who was there was into the band. I think it has to do with demographic. And then somebody else pointed out that, you know, it seemed to be, there was a fair amount of people that were 50 to 75 years old there. And maybe those people they just want to sit there and enjoy the music. But I've got a little bit of a hip issue. And so I wanted to get up. And finally, towards the end, I could, without having somebody yell at me to sit down, I could get up. And at that point, all of a sudden, I was transported back to where I was in 1970 when I was at those 5 Leon Russell shows. And I was conscious of the connection of how powerful that was then for me is now manifested in a different way with this band. And it really is a natural thing to not have to be seated all the time during one of their shows. There should be some kind of thing read at the beginning of the show. Or somebody had said that. I think Susan should say something about.
She has occasionally. She sometimes encourages people to stand up and dance, or just to dance. It's the never-ending debate. That's it. That comes up every other episode of this show. Some people have come up with some decent ideas, like reaffirm on the ticket that just because you get a ticket, but you're not guaranteed that the person in front of you, it won't be standing, so you're just guaranteed entry, not necessarily a view. That could be a thing. I mean, it's just, I guess. It's tough because I get why you want to stand, but if like no one else behind you is standing, that's a little tricky. But yeah, sometimes you can go to the side, but then an usher annoys you. So there's always kind of like a push and pull with trying to make the standing work in a place that might not be the most friendly. I've had my fair share of run-ins in this regard too.
Yeah, like at Red Rocks, that's not an issue.
No, that's what I'm saying. You're gonna get hardcore fans.
Staggered seat, every row was down, so you can, if everybody's standing, you in theory can potentially be seated and still see. But and so the
Mother Nature built that venue.
Well, the way the rocks are on the wall are there, but it was in the 30s when they had the Civilian Conservation Corps, which was a make work, a Depression era deal, where they would just, and so they came in there and went, we want to carve 90 rows out of this sloping rock that had other boulders on it and whatnot, and turn it into a seated amphitheater. And it took them 7 years with all these workmen in there having to really a phenomenal effort was put in that created, because they would have some music there before they did that, but it would be down at the base, and then there would just be a few people down there. But there was no way it wasn't, it was a natural, like, boulder strewn on it, whatnot. So the work they did to prepare that place was something out of the Depression. And it wasn't until 1959 that rock and roll played there. And it was Ricky Nelson was the first rock and roll band. And the Beatles played there in '64. And so the tradition up there, I've been to so many shows up there. And I shot some of the shows up there also. And people fly in from all over the country for every show. And the TTB one, because I do the day of, when the first day is where you can buy tickets. And so I went East Coast and Midwest, and I was able to get 5th row, 7th, whatever, and in time for Red Rocks. And it was tough, everybody's now pointing to going to see him at Red Rocks. And so it's the great migration from around the United States.
Yep. Did you see this? Did you see this last night? People were talking about Derek playing the Trying to get the picture. Hold on a second. Derek played a Jaguar guitar, a Fender Jaguar,
Yeah.
which you don't really see.
Yep.
I don't know if he's ever played this guitar. Someone will have to let me know. A Derek historian if he's ever played the guitar. But what's so kind of meaningful to me is this was a guitar that my dad had when he was a teenager, and I remember him. He doesn't have it anymore, but he had it around the house and would play it sometimes. And so I sent him a picture. So I'm like, Derek played a Jaguar. Also, the song I was thinking of earlier, the JJ Gray song was "Standing on the Edge of Love." You know that song, "Standing on the Edge of Love." TTB is covered. I think that they probably toured together or something like 2010, 2011, in some capacity. That's what I'm guessing, but that was what I was thinking of earlier. But my dad, he was actually lucky enough because I grew up in New York, and that's where he's from. He was born in '50, so I'm probably a year or two younger than you. But he was lucky enough to catch Dwayne and Jimi Hendrix and everyone at the Fillmore's. That was his stomping grounds for sure. I had him on episode 70 a while back, and that was pretty much what the episode was about him telling me all about his Fillmore East days. He was at the live recording of the Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore albums. He was there for those shows. There's a picture of him. I showed it on the podcast. There's a picture of him standing in the audience clapping along to the Allman Brothers, and it was in some British magazine. I have a picture of it and have it and all that. So it's genetic, it's generational for me too, getting into this music.
So I'm sure you've had him go see them.
Yeah, we've gone to 2, 3, 4, 5 shows together. This was really special. We did a father-son trip. I flew from LA, from California, down to Atlanta, and met him from New York, and we saw 2 shows at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, TTB, and then before the shows we drove down to Macon, of course, and saw the Big House and Graveyard, and went to H&H and did the whole and Capricorn Studios, and then did the whole Macon thing. So that was cool. So yeah, I've seen him at my dad. I think just the Beacon Fox. But yeah, like 4, 5, 6 shows with my dad for sure.
So does he feel the way? I would assume he doesn't feel like I do. I don't know. But does he then want to go see them, or is it usually you inviting him?
I would say a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. They still go to a fair amount of shows, my parents, here and there. But I guess this is more my specific thing. But it was interesting to talk to him about, because my dad got into, even after we talked about this in the sort of late 60s, more like maybe early 70s, his musical taste started to evolve a little bit more into jazz. So he loves all the same stuff that Derek loves in terms of like all the Miles Davis and the Coltrane's and all the jazz artists that I should know better than I do, which I'm into it too. I'm diving more and more, and I'm at the point where a lot of this jazz stuff, I'm saying to myself, oh, I get it now. Like I'm having that sort of feeling and revelation. So it was interesting to hear his tastes evolve. But yeah, I'll drag him out to a TTB show here and there. He doesn't go kicking and screaming. And he was a big Clapton fan. His Derek is Clapton. My Clapton is Derek, essentially. But so he was a big Cream fan, and we were lucky enough to schmooze a little with the band after a show, one of the Atlanta shows, and we were talking to Falcon, and my dad was giving Falcon compliments, saying how great he was, and he sounds just as great as Ginger Baker and all this stuff. So if my dad is giving out compliments like that, and relating TTB to Cream, I'm like, that's a good sign that he digs this band too.
So, and that's part of my attitudes. What can I do to help? Because it's such a precious jewel. I want them to succeed, but it's not like they're all of a sudden going to come into a windfall where their albums are selling millions of copies. It's a slow growth thing, it appears. but it's not cheap to have 10 other musicians.
No.
To where they can, I don't know how the business arrangement works, but to where everybody can feel a sense of security, because they go out all the time and they're not going to end. It appears. And
No,
so,
that's great. That's my biggest fear, is that not so much that there's going to be like a conflict or anything between them on a personal level. It's more that these people are so talented and they're going to want more money. They're going to want more spotlight. They're going to want to spend just more time on their solo albums. If Gabe couldn't do his own thing and couldn't contribute with his vocals and his songwriting and opening with his band and having enough time outside of TTB to pursue his own interests, he wouldn't be able to he wouldn't want to be in Tedeschi Trucks bands. And I think Derek and Susan and the band have struck the right balance with that in terms of keeping the members happy. Whereas the Allman Brothers, just from reading Alan Paul's book, they didn't take scheduled breaks. They're like, it was more like, I'm sick of you people. We're not, it was more dramatic periods of being broken up versus like, okay, let's take a break from touring. We're gonna go play in New York, and then you got your Atlanta guys in the band. You got Gabe doing his thing. Mike Mattison is cooking up his projects and books and things like that. So the band is able to stick together because they're able to give each other that personal space and that personal creative space within the band and outside the band.
Well, that is true. And the challenge for Tedeschi Trucks as its own thing of not becoming massive and blowing up is the demographic shift of what music is actually hot at this time. And what they're doing is not that. It's hotter than hot, but it's not the hot new thing. So back in the 70s, it would have been much easier for another member to get hired by another band or go do a solo thing and actually make some money. Nowadays, in the genre that they're in, the fact that they don't say you can't do anything else is obviously cool, but it's not like any of these people could actually go out and all of a sudden be making more money, because it's hard. It's hard now to take this kind of real music approach and become big or become successful. It's not the norm. And the band Tedeschi Trucks itself proves that by how they
Right.
And so
right,
what Gabe can do, hey, have at it,
It's like hard to believe for me that because they are like the best band. So it's like, why are they not the most popular band too? And in a way that transcends all ages. And the best I guess I could come up with is that it's more just about exposure, and they're just not known to people. I think that's what it is. Because once you know, and they're not playing top 40 music that's auto-tune and that's poppy or hip hop or whatever the hell is the popular music with younger people these days. Because I don't know, I just think that they're so great that it would just it transcends all music. And there are young guitar players out there. There are young blues artists out there that I follow, and a lot of them have opened for TTB or played with, or I've discovered them because of just being a fan of this music. So there are young people out there, but like you're saying, it is still more of a niche than Derek Truck. Not mainstream enough.
I know the real reason why they haven't put it through. They haven't figured out how to do the hip TikTok video, because that literally is how bands and artists now break. It's so much bigger than any other platform. And so they've yet to pander to how do they figure out how to come up with a fun, whatever it would be, video that could go viral on TikTok. And
they do have a TikTok account. I'm just as guilty in some regard, because I'm not totally the most active. I'm not active on TikTok at all. I think I just made an account. It looks like they haven't posted in a minute. Oh, that's a pin tweet.
And I do some Uber driving, and I picked up a kid who was 17. He was with his dad. He had just done a club date in Denver as a solo country artist that was sold out. And I had done a lot of interviews, so I'm good at asking a follow-up question. He goes, what is going on here? And he told this whole story. I don't have his name right in front of me, but his buddy, he's like this amazingly reflection of the greatness of what country was back in the day, and just his voice, his songs, and so he blew up on TikTok, and then blew up on YouTube, and then Interscope Nashville came to sign.
Could something like that happen with TTB? Like potentially just some random, totally unexpected thing that makes them become like, I mean, they're more popular almost like within the industry. I feel like even thinking about the Jeff Beck tribute. Do you remember the Jeff Beck tribute? It was in overseas and watching that or whatever. And there were legendary musicians on the stage, but just watching it, maybe it's my personal bias, but I felt like they were all kind of deferring to Susan and Derek in some regard, to her powerhouse vocal.
Eric obviously, Eric was the musical director of that show. So he's the one who made phone calls. And so he, for sure, because I don't think Derek had ever played with Jeff. And Susan, obviously. But because Eric understands and Derek trucks, and because Derek could play that the Mingus hi-hat the way he did, and but Susan could do what she did, so they obviously fit in. And just, but then the next year they came with months later they came back, and they were doing "Stay With Me," the Faces song, because they'd been hanging out with Rod Stewart and Ron Wood at that show, and that's when he was doing Beck's Bolero. And so they came back from that event doing those two songs because they were at that event.
They often do stuff like that when they play a special event or doing a cover, like something about what's going on in their musical world or their lives will inspire them to do a song. I know that they were doing a fair amount of Allman Brothers kind of tributes earlier in the year. So once they got back on touring, earlier this year, they kind of maybe didn't do quite as much as maybe fans were expecting. It was more like a break from that and getting back into TTB. But often what you're describing does happen. I've taken up a lot of your time already, an hour and 17 minutes. We could talk about this all day if you want. I just wanted to check up on you and
so what happened to Kevin?
That's a good question. Actually, let's see if he messaged. He might have messaged me here. Oh, my power is out. Sorry to hear that.
Maybe they're having storms down there. I don't know.
I thought maybe I scared him away or something. But what else should we cover? What else should we talk about?
Well, I think for me it was a revelation to go down to Tulsa in general, but to go to the church studio in specific. If people need to go to Tulsa to see that place. So if you're anywhere near there or whatever, it's a phenomenal. So there's a bit of a story. This one woman put the whole thing together, and they've completely renovated this place. They've got all the file cabinets where they keep all the art. It's the repository for all things Leon Russell. So they have what they call docents, which are volunteers, and they have a bar in there. It's like a social hangout with people in Tulsa who are part of the music scene or are just drawn to hanging out there. And so I went back over there yesterday for my tour, and I was talking to one gentleman. He was starting to do it for me, but then this other guy, Michael, oh boy, second, I remember his name. He sidled up, and then we just had this connection. And so he started taking me around. Turns out this guy had the most amazing history, and he's on the Mad Dogs and Englishmen poster of the band shot that they took in San Francisco. And he's got this whole story about that. But things I didn't really understand was when, after Derek and the Dominoes, Clapton reformed a band that was all people from Tulsa. And he spent a lot of time in Tulsa. And Michael was there. And he showed me pictures on his phone that will never be published. and the stories he told. But the thing that was really powerful, because I was aware of how, and he told me the specifics. When he decided he was going to change from that band, management sent everybody a telegram or whatever it was saying, "You're no longer employed." And that included Carl Rattle. And Carl was crushed by that. And Eric had expressed some regret years later in Rolling Stone about all that. Because he basically walked away. He's walked away from a lot of people over time because Eric had this traumatic childhood. So in 2013, because there was Don Sims was the keyboard player, Jamie Odeker, Carl, a number of them had passed. But the keyboard player, he had just turned his back on him. So he got a hold of everybody in 2013 and said, "I want to come back to Tulsa and make amends." And they gathered at Michael's home and played together in his home in 2013 as his way of coming and making amends to how he had abandoned all those musicians back in the late 70s. What did this has not ever really made it into any kind of history that I had ever heard. And that this was I've got his name in my head. The gentleman was just amazing in terms of his stories that he told. And he just volunteers there, Michael Mullen. And so all of a sudden, and he shared a bunch of other things about he helped form the first rehab center in Tulsa. Stuff like that is like amazing. So if anybody's in Tulsa or wants to go there, some of the people that volunteer there to do the tours, this guy was like, wow, just incredible stories. He actually was living all of it. And he and Eric still communicate from back then. And so that was very touching, just to meet somebody there. And there are other people there too. That again, this place kind of serves as a social hub for veterans of the Tulsa music scene, and people who just want to hang out or whatever. And so it's more than this place, but it's also a functioning analog recording studio, first class. And they're actually, I think, in the black right now. And when I first spoke to them, I said, yeah, it's just like Derek and Susan's all analog studio down in Jacksonville. So it's really an interesting place with a very human dynamic to it that I had no idea. I'd studied in this cool museum. And all of a sudden, I'm having these conversations with people that are just so heartwarming, and just it made the trip something unusual. And with them coming and doing the songs and doing the Q&A and doing all that, they are obviously on board with that museum. And I can't say enough about that. It's worth it for people to go. And there's the Bob Dylan Museum.
That's what I was just gonna say. I pulled it up here to remind myself. But I've been meaning to get down there to see that because I'm a huge Bob Dylan fan too.
And I guess the Woody Guthrie but the roots of what Tulsa had been about is so rich. And Leon was the magnet. When he went to LA, he wound up sucking a lot of those musicians out to LA. And all the stuff unfolded from that. And then Clapton, of course, wound up playing with Carl. So I went back and I was listening to that Delaney and Bonnie, the shows they did live. They put out on Apple. I mean, there's 4 different albums they did with their original band. And Carl Rattle was the bass player. And in my car, I've got a really good system in my car, and I was listening. I'm like, Carl Rattle was a fucking motherfucker. What a great bass player. And just these stories of how crazy everything was, and that people got left behind. And Carl, I guess, Eric really felt poorly because he was it an overdose or he got, I forget what happened, but Carl never recovered somehow. Clapton just sent him a telegram. You're no longer part of the band. Just the most cold, and that's why he came back in 2013 to make amends. And that was an incredible story. But Derek's so inspired by all those guys. And, obviously the Clapton piece, he worked with them. And so I figured out 1969, 70, 71. If you look at their songbook of songs that they do, there's quite a few that were put out in those 3 years from those artists and that era. And then I figured out, well, that's part of why I respond to them, is because that was my time. Those were the songs I was coming of age with. But it wouldn't be enough that some band is playing all those songs. It's the way they play those songs. It's the way they do the entire set that's beyond what any of those acts ever did. None of those bands had a long-term, we're going to mow you down for 14 years running, and it just keeps going. No other band, they were inspired by longevity.
They are a force. TTB is certainly a force to be reckoned with. I wish you a great time at Red Rocks. That's not tomorrow, Friday and Saturday. I'll be watching the streams on Nugs for sure. In my apartment here, enjoying it. But thank you so much for the time, for sharing your TTB journey and the stories and Tulsa. It was great for me to connect with you. I feel like I'm like, why haven't we done this years ago?
I know. So you must have been at the Beacon. You were at the Beacon shows, right? I'm sure you were.
I was at the Beacon shows last year. Was that last year? They're all blending together. I think that's last year.
What have you done this year, man? Besides doing this
podcast? We got LA coming up. We got LA coming up in a couple of weeks. Maybe Phoenix. We'll see.
I just met you. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm not poking you. When are you
poke
going?
Away? poke away. I do got to get to Red Rocks. That's a bucket list. As is, I'd say the Ryman, Red Rocks. There's a few. I've had conversations about the quintessential, essential TTB venues to see shows. So we'll see. I'll get.
Let me just finish with this, because when I was at the Beacon show, and I hooked up with David Flam from. Of
course, yeah, he's a frequent contributor.
And so we hooked up and then got the whole perspective that, them doing the Beacon is like the big deal. And because of the Allman Brothers tradition and the whole point of the venue in New York where you're embraced by the Big Apple. And that was always a sign of ultimate success. If you could be a big deal there, which they are. So the Beacon's so important. But then Red Rocks obviously holds this incredibly special place with them. And so I was going, okay, well, Tulsa, how's that going to work? And it was just the same magic. It wasn't because the Beacon is this and Red Rocks is that. Tulsa last night was as good as I've experienced them. So
there's a connection. TTB manages to find or have a connection to so many different venues and places and cities. Oh, this band member's from here. Oh, this is where Leon and Bob Dylan have roots, and that's a connection. Oh, this is where the Dead, if it's a Northern California show. LA has a lot of rock and roll roots, of course, and whatnot. Obviously, Atlanta, New York, Atlanta,
San Francisco.
Well, anywhere in the state of Florida obviously has roots, and in the South, and a lot of the Delta, the blues, in terms of the American blues history, cities across the South have TTB meanings to them. But thank you so much. I appreciate it. Means a lot to me. I'll do my little plugs here. I don't know if there's anything you want to plug your Facebook page, Tommy Bolin Archives.
Yeah, the Tommy Bolin Archives, which we're up to I think 230,000 followers. And Tommy, for those who aren't into him, he was of a caliber back then that Derek obviously understands and understood about his gift. And if Tommy was alive, that's somebody that would have played with everybody. He would have been part of that family, just the rarefied air kind of thing. So I'm posting a lot of the TTB stuff there. Last night and I'll probably do it at Red Rocks too, but boy, it drains the battery in the phone pretty fast when you're live on Facebook. But
gotta get you a backup battery, battery pack.
My son's got one, and he said, "Oh, you should have it." And so I think I'm trying to have that be a tradition that I would start each show I go to with the first song or two live. I'm not going to try to go. They're doing nugs, so they don't need me trying to do full on.
You don't need to do it at all. Actually, if we got nugs, enjoy the show. But
Well, and that's what happened last night because I ran out of battery power. And the second set, because anytime he starts soloing, I gotta record this.
There's so many moments where it's like, do I need to capture this?
And I had to let go of that last night, and that was really beautiful because what happened to me in that second set is a place I would like to live all the time. And so, but that would be the thing, if people want to go to that page. Because it's kind of got a little sub theme now of being Tedeschi Trucks Band, and then I share some of that stuff in that one Tedeschi Trucks Band group on Facebook, which you're very familiar with, and so I'm just having a ball. It's great. It feeds me in a way that my career used to be the deal for that, and I'm retired from that now. And so this gives me a chance to plug into all of that, but also to have unprecedented amount of dopamine releases. And at my age, with all that's going on in this country right now, it's okay to have that kind of a distraction. I give myself permission to lose.
Oh, for sure. Music is healing, and Susan was talking about it even on a scientific level in a way that's beyond even me. But there's certainly something to that where music and sounds can be healing. It brings people together. It brought us together right now and this current time. So I appreciate that. Please like, subscribe, follow on all the things. We're part of PantheonPodcast.com as well, Pantheon Podcast Network. So I appreciate that. Patreon.com/TTB podcast to support. Weedside, Woodside, and Queens. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, TTB. People listening, people watching, the band, crew, everyone. Have a great time at Red Rocks. I guess we want to come on to we can talk about it offline, but let's get you on to recap Red Rocks. I'll either do it the night after or 2 nights after. If people are traveling, we'll figure it out. Maybe I'll have to do 2 nights to cover this, but that sounds like a good 200th episode.
Our guys reached out to Steve Johansson, lives in Western Colorado. He's had a long history doing really cool rock art. He's worked with Warren Haynes a bunch, all kinds of stuff. He knows all these people. And he's going to come to Red Rocks, and we're going to meet up. So
is he doing the poster? Is he doing the poster for Red Rocks?
I don't. That's a whole. No, I don't think so. But there's a whole thing last night about are they going to do posters for every show or not? But that's a whole nother thing. But he, after I meet him and get a sense for him, he might be an interesting person also for you to have.
Get him on. Like I'm excited to talk to anyone who loves this band and has any connection to them, whether they're just a fan who dances or a professional musician in the band or anyone in between, like a creator, an entrepreneur, you photographer, videographer, whatever the case may be, or like I said, just fans or working at venues, whatever, anyone who loves this band is someone I'm interested in talking to.
So what's your turnaround for getting this up on YouTube?
It's been up on YouTube. We've been live streaming for 1 hour and 34 minutes and 31 seconds, but the audio version I'll probably get out on later tonight or tomorrow, and it'll be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the things.
Well, I'll start sharing it on the archives page.
Sounds good.
And this is beautiful. I'm thrilled that things are progressing for this band, and that you've been doing this, and obviously, the dedication to do this and to do it right and to keep it going. It's not a simple process. So
I appreciate that. I must be crazy on some level to no. The road goes on forever.
You have love in your heart, and you're acting from that place.
I appreciate that. I will bother you. I will bother you probably on Sunday to come on. I think Sunday night will be the goal. I'll be able. Not everyone will be traveling. If I get a couple of people on to recap, I don't even need a guest because I'll be watching myself. But I would love to talk to someone who's there in attendance and celebrate my 200th episode and celebrate what I'm sure is going to be amazing shows this weekend. But I'll let you enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll let you enjoy this weekend, and I look forward to chatting either on the podcast or offline, messaging with you about it, and have a great rest of your evening for sure.
Adam, I am so appreciative, and thanks so much.
Oh, you got to talk soon.
Okay,
Later.
Bye-bye. See you.